one of the things I see posted really frequently on um, guitar blogs, jazz guitar blogs, is something along the lines of how do I go from playing blues to playing jazz. I'm kind of stuck in pentatonic world, and there's a lot of talk on the internet, which you can find pretty easily, with tons of advice on how to do that and how to get from that blues place to playing jazz. And really, it's a complicated answer because everyone's coming from a little bit of a different place and everyone wants to go a little bit somewhere different. No one plays anything the same. Well, that's what you should be doing, is um, trying to form your own voice. I would say, in my opinion, there's maybe only a couple wrong ways to go about it, namely just running through arpeggios and modes in a non-musical way just for the sake of it. And then there's, I think, plenty of right ways to go about it. The way that I um, think is best is to listen, play, and analyze. And no better way to do that than by listening to the masters and the way that they did it and trying to copy what they did. So I picked this tune by Charlie Christian. Well, it was recorded by the Benny Goodman Sextet as part of a radio broadcast in early 1941. It was called like American Swing Time or something. It was part of like a radio music festival, and they did, I guess, like four or five of their standard tunes, like Flying Home, um, Gone with What Wind, She Could Be. And after like the first tune, I think Flying Home, the host asks Benny, "Why don't you play some blues? Why don't you play some blues?" And Benny says, "All right, we'll play some blues. How about B flat?" And Charlie gets 24 bars. He takes like a two chorus solo over a 12 bar blues, and it really gives us an opportunity to talk about a couple elements I think that are important in helping you understand um, that that move just from blues to jazz. Like there are only a couple things going on in here that I think are like jazzy, which is why I picked the solo, because it doesn't jump too quickly into clearly jazz world. And so I'll spend a bit of time talking about what I think some of those things are, but I won't spend too much time because the more that you talk about what is jazz, you kind of lose the point. It's kind of like what Louis Armstrong said. Uh, and people asked him what's jazz, and he said something to the effect of, "Well, if you have to ask, then you're never going to know," or something, which I think is pretty true. One thing, I think the first thing is not so much notes that you're playing, but the rhythmic placement of those notes and the choices that you make in varying um, uh, what you do and each time that you play, which I know is a blues thing, but I think it's particularly um, poignant in jazz playing. Two is probably something pretty obvious. Two and three, I think, are something pretty obvious. Um, Playing notes that are intrinsic to the chord that's being played. So called like playing over the changes. And three, understanding 2-5-1 progressions. So we're going to take a look at mostly those two things. You kind of have to play and learn the solo on your own. Um, I think playing and learning the solo on your own first, and then coming back to this point might be a good thing to do. And then we can, if you want to analyze it, or you can just analyze it with me now and go back and play. I think both are a fine way to do it. The fourth thing, which kind of lets the listener know, oh, I'm listening to jazz, and lets you know that, oh, I think I'm playing jazz, is not so much playing the notes that are intrinsic to the chord that's being played, but notes that are intrinsic to the next chord that's going to be played. So actually anticipating the changes a little bit. And that's something that Charlie does all over his solos and all the jazz greats. But let's take a look at the first two. Learning the solo and understanding the rhythmic placement and getting a feel it kind of speaks for itself. I'll try to highlight it a little bit. But what I want to do is first I want to take a look at the form of the tune, because they play each chorus is actually played a little bit differently if you listen to the band and what's going on behind Charlie, and he takes advantage of that. So I want to talk about that first. I'm going to assume that you know your 12-bar blues progression. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to block out some of the changes and what I hear going on first. In the first chorus, I actually think it sounds like just a straight. No, it actually sounds like a more of a jazz type blues where there's a 2-5-1 progression going on, and I'll show you where to put that and how it happens. And then actually the second chorus sounds like it's just the standard blues progression, 12-bar blues progression, as you probably understand it. But there's a little twist in there too, and I'm going to go over that. So let's look at the first chorus first. So I'm just going to block out the rhythm in just kind of a 4 to the bar method. If you don't know what that is, that's fine. It's basically just means just playing 3 notes per chord on the guitar, and which has all the information, the harmonic information, to understand what chord is being played. So measure 1 is 1, measure 2, measure 3, measure 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now in measure 9, instead of going to so we're in B flat, instead of going to an F7, you actually go to a C minor 7th. So if you just want to play a big bar chord, that's fine. So you're on the 8th fret, you have your root note on the 8th fret, that's C, and then just bar a big minor chord, that's fine. What I'm doing is I'm just paring it down to a C on the low E string, skipping the A string. I'm going up to the D string, and I'm playing on the 8th fret also, and then I'm on the G string, I'm playing on the 8th fret also, and those are the only 3 notes I'm playing, and I'm just strumming down, and that's my C minor 7th. So measure 9 would be C minor 7th, measure 10 would be F7, back to B flat, back to F7 for your last measure, and then you're back into the 1 chord. I'm playing a B flat 6th, which adding the 6th tone, scale tone, is something that was really popular in the big band and swing era and finds its way into jazz playing all the time. So I'll show you how I'm playing that chord. On the 6th fret of the low E string, I'm using my middle finger to play a B flat. Again, skipping the A string, I'm muting it. On the 5th fret of the D string, I'm playing that note, and then up to with my index finger, and then up to the G string on the 7th fret. I have my pinky there, and then I just strum all the notes, and I mute out the ones that I don't want. I'm trying not to make this video about that right now, but I just wanted to have you hear what I was playing. Skipping forward to the second chorus, you hear in the background, I'm and I'm going to post a link to the recording of this so you can hear it. I'll post a couple links. You hear actually the 11th bar sounds like it's divided into which is usually would be just your 1 chord into the 12th bar, which would be your 5 chord and F7. I hear 2 beats of B flat 6, and I actually hear the 4th scale tone of a B flat blues is E flat, which we know we're going to on measures 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your 4. I hear an E flat minor, and I'm going to show you how that works. And I actually think I hear an E flat. Charlie plays the notes outlining an E flat minor 6, and I'll show you how and why that works. So I'm just going to do it in big kind of cowboy chords, bar chords first, and then I'll show you how to pare it down a little bit so you understand where and why. So I hear 2 beats of B flat, then I hear 2 beats of E flat minor, and back into now the first 2 measures of the 12th bar are not going to be all 4 beats of F7. It'll be 2 beats of B flat, 2 beats of F7, and then back into the first bar again of the next chorus. So this is a little bit of a trick that was done back in that time, where the turnaround for a blues would actually have in the 11th measure would have a major into the 4 minor, that you would hear something like this, or something that like a rhythm guitarist like Alan Roos would have done, or something like that. And where the minor 6 comes in is I'll show you. Okay, if we look at our, I just want you to, on the upper 3 strings, I want you to fret an E flat major. So that's going to mean on the high E string, you're going to fret at the 6th fret. On the B string, you're going to fret at the 8th fret. And on the G string, you're going to fret at the 8th fret. There's an E flat major. To make that minor, on the B string, your pinky, which is there, you're just going to pick that up and you're going to put your middle finger down. And now you have an E flat minor. To find the 6th tone, to make it an E flat minor 6, we're going to walk down our root notes. So I have here's my E minor on the G string. So I'm going to start on E minor, and the 7th, 1 fret down, 1 more fret down, the dominant 7th, and then the 6th. Now grab that B string at the 7th fret again, and then grab it with your middle finger, grab the 6th fret on the high E string. That's an E minor 6th right there. And it's important when it comes to that second chorus that Charlie does, where they do that little E minor bit in the 11th bar, because he highlights both of those notes. So now we're going to go over the solo. So a lot of it is kind of standard and has to do with rhythmic placement. So one thing he does is he slides into the root note, plays it again, and has this long rest, and then lands on the dominant 7th, So he's playing the sixth chord tone, scale tone of the B flat here, which is something I told you that was kind of intrinsic to this jazzy big band era. So he goes. He kind of waits there for a second, and it's the 4, and then he plays a little bit around with the playing around with the minor and the major. So if you're you're inclined to only be playing minor pentatonic, something that you want to start doing is incorporating and playing around with the relationship between the minor third and the major third. Which is what Charlie does there in the second bar. So again, we'll play it. That little kind of rhythmic playfulness there. You could play it really, really stale, like. It's a little, it's fine, but he makes it more interesting. And I'm not a Charlie Christian, I'm not religious about using only downstrokes, as I think some people who play a lot of Charlie Christian stuff do. However, you have to pick this to get it out, that's fine. I'm using upstrokes on both of those notes to get them. The thing he does next is he plays. So down, he finishes that first phrase down on the fifth scale tone of the B flat blues scale, and what he does next is, instead of going back into the root, he sidesteps one below it and he plays, which is kind of a little bit playful and kind of hammers home the home feeling of being in B flat. He just plays a major triad there. He plays around with that minor major again. Plays the 5th and then the 6th again. There's that 6th. And then he slides up to the 7th. And now you're like, okay, that's I'm a familiar kind of blues territory there. And then over the E flat 7 chord, he plays some really bluesy stuff. He just does it a little more of some rhythmic interest. He plays. Sorry. So he picks it and then picks it again and slides down to the minor third. I'm grabbing the root down there. That's a B flat on the G string, the 3rd fret. And you know that is because here's the octave on the 6th fret on the high E string. There's my B flat. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this position in a second. So again, that's. And then I play that next part. He kind of plays around again with those notes just in a little bit of a different way. He slides up. That's something I think you're probably familiar with. If you've been playing blues, it just makes it a little bit more interesting. And he plays again with that minor into major again, and then hits the 5th. Then he waits. And the next thing he does is our first little bit of blues that we're going to be, or our first little kind of jazz element that we're going to be looking at, because in bar 9, it goes to that C minor 7th like I talked about. And Charlie plays, he plays a B flat on the B string up at the 11th fret. And he plays one note below it. So that note on the high E string he's grabbing is at the 8th fret on the high E string. It comes back to the B flat on the 11th fret of the B string. So, okay, what was that? So if you play your big C C minor again, and you take a look at the notes that you're fretting here. You're fretting on the 10th fret of the D string. You're fretting that note. You're fretting the 8th fret on the G string. You're fretting the 8th note on the B string. And if you put your pinky down on the B string, so you already have your index finger kind of barring here. I'm just doing that to outline the chord. If you play the if you put your pinky down on the 11th fret of the B string, it becomes a C minor 7. And then on the high E string, you have the C again. So Charlie's just outlining that C minor 7th chord just in a really musically interesting way. So then he goes down to on the D string on the 7th fret. The importance of this note here is that over the F7 chord, this is the 3rd of the F7, and I'll prove it to you. On the 8th fret of the A string is your F. Now, if you play a scale, so on the 8th fret you have an F. That's within the context of F. That's the 1. Put your pinky down on the 10th fret of the A string. You have 2, and then put your index finger down on the 7th fret of the D string, and you have your 3rd. A little note on 2-5-1 progressions. They're something that's interesting about them that I think is important to look at early on here is that the 2 chord, if you play just those 3 notes, it can almost be looked at as just a suspension of the F7. So I have my thumb on the 8th fret. I have my my middle finger on the 8th fret of the D string and the G string. I have my ring finger on the 8th fret, like I did before. If I just take off my middle finger from the D string on the 8th fret and put my index finger there. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I had it in the wrong fret. That's actually an F7. It just has the 5th in the bass, and we're not actually playing the F. So the C minor 7 and the F7 are really only 1 note away from each other. And then back to the home chord. So just looking at that 2-5-1 again, as he does another little trick. What is this business? So I'm going to assume that you're familiar with 9th chords. You've been playing some blues, and you're kind of in a B flat blues, and maybe you're like. Okay, we look here with our F9 here. I am barring all these notes on the high E string, the B string, and the G string with my ring finger. I'm grabbing on the 7th fret of the D string with my index finger, and on the A string, I have my middle finger on the 8th fret. I'm playing my F7. So Charlie finds a way to get all of these notes into this arpeggio that he plays. That sounds really awesome, except the low F string. He leaves it out. Now, you may be familiar with this too, or maybe you've done it and you don't know what you're doing. If you grab this F7 like this and you lay your pinky down up on the 10th fret, just grab the high E string at the 10th fret. What you've done here is, I'm not going to count out all the chord scale tones again, but essentially what you've done is you've turned this from an F9 into an F13. Way up here, just, you can tune out for a second if you don't want to listen to it. It's the 13th because it's actually the 6th scale tone of the of an F, and if you add, what you do is you add 7 on top of numbers below 7 to understand in a jazz context they're higher extensions. So it's the 6th, I add 7 to it, it's the 13th. So he plays an arpeggio that outlines an F dominant 13th. And how I do that is I take my on that third of the F7 on the 7th fret of the D string. I don't use my pinky when I play Charlie Christian, as a lot of people do. Sorry, my phone was about to die. I grab that up on the 10th fret on the D string. At the same time, I'm moving my my index finger over to grab all the rest of the notes on the at the 8th fret on the G string and the B string. So my finger's moving over, and when I'm playing those, I take my ring finger off of the D string and I put it up on the E string. I'll try to really accentuate that and like zoom in on it a little bit. And that's what he's doing there. So again, and that's all happening over a, and then he brings it back home with just some kind of standard blues playing. Sorry. And even there, he's kind of being playful about those little eighth notes on the playing the B flat. He's not playing. He's like, oh sorry. And again, he plays around with that major and minor. What he does next is he seems to go down to this lower position here, where you can find some blues and jazz notes too. If you play a pentatonic scale on any fret, so we're going to start on the 6th fret because we're playing in B flat. We go. If you move it down 3 frets, and then start from the bottom and you actually find some notes that are intrinsic to, this is just a little kind of a cheat. I'm not going to go too much theory about it right now. You find a bunch of notes that are intrinsic to the B flat, to the 1 chord. If you want to concentrate on any one note within the context of B flat, because that's the key that we're in, you find a B flat on the G string at the 3rd fret, and then the 2 is just 2 frets up on the 5th fret, and the minor 3rd is just 1 more note up, 1 more fret up. Then you have your 6th down, just hanging right below. If you have your index finger there on the 3rd fret of the G string, down on the 5th fret of the D string, you can grab your ring finger, and there's the 6th, and then going 2 more frets down on the 3rd fret of the D string, you have your 5th. So there's all sorts of fun notes that you can play in that position. And then the next thing he does is he kind of slides up into that minor 3rd. Maybe bends it up a little bit, I'm not sure. I kind of did it, I think it's fun. Then he goes back down to the B flat. Hangs out on the 6th chord tone for a minute. Really sounds cool. It's kind of sliding in from the 2nd to the minor 3rd and maybe bending it up a little bit. That's kind of what I hear. So, and then he does something that also can add a little bit of flavor to your blues playing and make it sound a little jazzier. Instead of just going down from the root to the 6 to the 5, he adds a chromatic movement from the 6 down to the 5 by playing the 5th fret on the D string, the 4th fret on the D string, the 3rd fret on the D string. There's that major minor again. There's the 6th again. Then he waits, and this is the 2nd time around the band in the 9th bar, they just play an F7. And what Charlie does is he outlines that F7. So he slides up. If you just play a bar at F7, up on the 11th fret of the E string, there's an interesting note up there that he slides into. So what he does is he slides into the 10th fret of the B string. He slides up, and if you play an F on the top 3 strings again, so index finger on the 8th fret, ring finger on the 10th fret, middle finger of the B string, middle finger on the 10th fret of the G string, there is an F. Now, where are the interesting notes from a blues perspective? Playing the F is interesting. Playing this note here, the 3rd chord tone of the F is interesting because it gives you information about the F that you're playing over. So he slides into that. Then he goes up to the 8th fret of the E string, which is the 5th of the F chord. Then he goes up to the 6th chord tone of the F and slides up into the dominant 7th of the F. So if you here's another way to look at the fretboard. If you play a big barred F chord right here with your at the 8th fret, try something like this. Take your index finger and bar all those 3 notes that you're getting with your pinky or your ring finger. I don't know how you do it. Grab all the notes on the 10th fret with your index finger from the D string upward. So I got the D string, the G string, the B string, and then lay your pinky up on the F on the high E string at the 13th fret. There's an F, and if you walk down that F on the high E string, you have an F, and the 11th fret of the high E string, you now have an F7, which is the chord that the band is playing, and that's the chord that's the note that Charlie highlights in his lick. The 3rd of the F7, the 5th, the 6th, and the dominant 7th. It's a note. And then he does the same thing over the E flat 7, which comes next. And then he does a familiar kind of blues type of figure here, where he grabs the if you get the root B flat here on the 6th fret, you get the minor 3rd up here on the 9th fret, and then one string below in the B, you grab the 8th fret. There's that kind of that bluesy kind of diminished feel. Actually, he is. Down to the 6th, the 5th, and he just plays around with that major and minor 3rd again. So I'll play that going into the F7, back into the E flat 7. And here's where we talked about in the a little bit further back in the beginning about throwing in this little E minor into your into the 11th bar of your blues. So he plays a little figure that outlines that that E flat minor or 6 that we talked about. So you're going to grab it again on 5th fret on the G string, the B string. You're going to fret at the 7th fret B string, and then 6th fret on the E string. And it's E minor 6. And what Charlie does is he outlines that by playing this lick. So that's what he's doing there. It's helpful to see the chord because that's going to help you guide you towards the notes, rather than saying, okay, that doesn't look like it's in my pentatonic scale. It's not, but it's intrinsic to the E flat 6 that minor 6 is being played. So I'll just hammer out the lick with you. On the 8th fret of the G string, 6th fret of the B string, 7th fret of the B string, and he goes back to that 8th fret of the G string. Then he goes down and hits that 6th chord tone over the E minor, kind of outlining it, that E minor 6th, and goes down to the root, the B flat minor, major 3rd, skips down to the 6th down here on the 5th fret of the D string, goes down to the 5th, and then makes it a little bit interesting just to finish things up. Instead of going maybe right back into the root, he sneaks in the 7th, the major 7th chord tone, just one note behind it, just to make it a little bit interesting, kind of like he did earlier in the solo when he goes. Yeah, this time he goes. So that's all I got for now. Video wound up being a lot longer than I thought it would be. If you have any questions, post in the comments. I'll do my best to reply. Apologize for the quality of this video. It's not something I do a lot at all. Hopefully it's something I do a little bit more, and hopefully you learn something about playing over changes, highlighting notes that are over changes, varying rhythmically the way that you place notes, and a 2-5-1 change. And we also got a little bit of extra bang for our buck and kind of learned a little bit of a variation on the in the 11th bar, going to the that E minor, the 4 chord of the, within the context of B flat, an E flat minor, and then now making it a 6th, an E flat minor 6th, which gives it even a little bit more color. All right, good luck. Happy playing. Learn the solo. I hope this is helpful. Comments below. I'll post a link to the recordings. All the best. Bye bye.